Welcome to the On Your Side podcast. I'm Gary Harper.
And I'm Susan Campbell. Recently, there have been some big advancements to help keep kids safe at home.
So today we're talking with Nancy Cowles. She's the executive director of the organization Kids in Danger, also known as KID. She says a recent decision about window coverings by the Consumer Product Safety Commission will save kids' lives.
But the risks won't go away immediately. So today we are uncovering some of those hidden hazards for little ones that you may not realize are in your house right now.
This is On Your Side with Susan Campbell and Gary Harper, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast.
Okay, welcome to the On Your Side podcast. I'm Gary Harper.
And I'm Susan Campbell.
It's a little chilly out today.
Well, for Phoenix standards.
Well,
if our listeners are anywhere other than Phoenix, they would laugh at us.
This is true.
Because it's 65 degrees.
I know.
And sort of cloudy.
And I have a pullover sweater on. I have not worn this thing, I think, since last December. So I had to drag it out today.
It was time. My husband texted me this morning. He gets the kids ready for school every day, and he said, "Where are their coats?"
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, my gosh.
Well, you put them away,
Yeah.
and you forget. So
back to the 70s and perfect later this week.
Exactly. Listen, we've got holidays coming up. We have a lot of gift giving, and, of course, that's going to relate to toys. And a lot of toys could be dangerous. Don't even know it until something bad happens.
Well, and we also have just a lot of things in our home. There might be, some hidden dangers, things that we live with all the time that we don't think about. You know
what's been around for years? It's just been a huge, dangerous factor in it's window blinds. Not necessarily shutters, but window blinds. You got those cords that hang down. Not good.
Absolutely. Actually, Gary, right before we moved in, it was like that day we closed on the house when we moved to Phoenix. It was the very first thing I asked my husband to do. I was like, we have to go to the store. We have to buy the cordless ones.
Right.
Because we had a 14-month-old at the time. And I thought, that is the one danger. I'm a consumer reporter. I've done these stories before.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that one's out of the house. And then the other one, dressers.
Yes.
We have literally every single thing you could possibly anchor to a wall, anchored to a wall.
Just bought a dresser the other day for my oldest son. He's 26, but needed a new dresser, and it came with the little brackets and the screws if I wanted to bolt it to the wall. Yeah. But he's 26, so hopefully he won't be jumping around on the dresser. But listen, we're talking today to Nancy Cowles. She's with Kids in Danger, also an acronym KID, which is kind of easy to remember. How you doing today, Nance?
I'm doing good, thank you.
I think you're joining us from Chicago?
I am, yes.
What's the weather like up there?
Well, I'm kind of thinking we're a little warmer than you actually today. We're in the 70s or low 70s, so we're having a beautiful fall day.
Wow.
How does that happen?
I don't know.
Well,
we need to go visit her in Chicago.
Well, by the time we get up there, there'll be sleet and ice. So
that's right.
Just enjoy it.
By the weekend, there could be sleet and ice. You never know.
Enjoy it while you can. Hey, we were talking about window blinds and the cords and the danger. There's been kind of a push to kind of get rid of those cords, and your organization, KID, knows a lot about that. Tell us, what's going on with that? Are we pushing this in the right direction to save lives?
Yes, definitely. We had big news this week. So this is an issue that's been around as long as there have been blinds where children get tangled in them. Usually they're very young children, but even children, school-age children sometimes have incidents if there's no one else around and they get entangled in such a way. But just this week, the Consumer Product Safety Commission voted and unanimously to adopt 2 product safety rules that affect blinds. One is for custom blinds. So custom blinds are ones you have measured to fit for your home. Maybe you have an odd-shaped window. Maybe you just want them to look a certain way. And those were not really covered well by the voluntary standard in terms of cords. So still had long cords on them. This would eliminate those. So it's anything over 9 inches. You can't have a cord that long, which is so that it's short enough it can't wrap around a child. And the second rule kind of brings in the voluntary standard that was in place for stock blinds that you might just go to the store and pick up that had already prohibited the cords on those and made it a mandatory rule. So now in 180 days, so 6 months from now, there can't be blinds manufactured that have those cords on them. They need to be cordless, very short cords, they can use levers, they can use electronics, but the cords will be a thing of the past in new blinds starting 6 months from now.
How many injuries were attributed to this hazard in homes?
There were a lot of injuries from children, near misses. I mean, you'll often see on, parenting Facebook pages and things, the kids with a bright red line across their throat where they got caught. In terms of deaths, it's one every month or so, every 2 months. And it's really, you can just imagine the heartbreak. And, for the parents who, in most cases, had no idea that this was a hazard. And you talked earlier about hidden hazards. I mean, it becomes obvious when you learn about it that obviously, a cord around a child isn't a good thing. But it's not something that you're thinking about every day. As you said, some people just move into them. Maybe they rent the house. They didn't put the blinds up. So we are really so thankful that now this will be in place. And it's all the work of KID has been following the issue and supporting it, but there's a group called Parents for Window Blind Safety, founded by a mother from the St. Louis area whose daughter died, Cheyenne died. There's the Consumer Federation of America, an advocate named Carol Pollock Nelson, and the three of them have really been the consumer voice in the voluntary standard setting and also kind of pushing for this big change that we saw this week.
Nancy, I guess it's not even your own house, and you kind of talked about this before. I mean, you could be in an Airbnb or maybe even a hotel room or a condo that you're renting somewhere, and you're going to have these blinds, and as a parent, you're not thinking about it, right?
That's right. And that's true so often especially with Airbnbs, when you're moving into a different house for a short period of time, those hidden hazards, whether it's the window blinds, I know we're going to talk a little bit about furniture, but also things like residential elevators, pools. If you're not used to being around a pool, you may not understand the layers of protection that are needed. So that's a whole different, and lengthy topic itself, and how to make sure you're safe, not just at home, but any other place your child may spend time.
And with these new rules, it's not a magic silver bullet. We were chatting about how some of these things can persist, not maybe at the store, but they do stick around the house. It's not like, every single family is going to hear that this rule happened and go immediately and change grandma and grandpa's blinds.
That's right. Things stay in houses for a long time. Blinds are certainly one of those things. Unfortunately, with blinds, there really isn't a safe solution other than changing. If you can't afford new blinds, the new cordless blinds, change to just plain curtains or drapes without any cords, because there's really no way to make those cords safe. They sell things where you can roll them up and put them up high, but then you forget to do it one time and there they are hanging down. And in that case, then also are a novelty to your child. They haven't seen them every day, so might be more likely to explore them. So if you have blinds and you have very young children, or as you mentioned, you're a grandma and young children visit, definitely consider getting rid of those corded products.
I'm curious, what kind of pushback was there from the window industry?
There was a lot of pushback. As I mentioned, this has been going on for decades. There was a petition in 2014 for CPSC to address this hazard. They held off on it because the window blind manufacturers said that they would take care of it. As I said, they came out finally with the standard for the stock blinds, but it didn't really address custom blinds. And the child doesn't know what type of blind you bought. A cord is a cord. And so CPSC did have to step in and take action on their own rather than relying on the industry. At this point, it'll go in effect in 6 months. We believe, as in so many cases, we have very creative entrepreneurs, people, designing new products, and we're sure that they can come up with cordless designs that fit people's needs in their homes.
We spoke earlier about cordless designs. Are we talking like motorized blinds? I mean, how would you get a blind up without a cord?
There are now, for instance, IKEA sells only cordless blinds now. They go up and down. They're just, some mechanism within them that holds it up when you pull it up and push it down. There are motorized blinds, obviously. So if you had a big space, high windows to cover, that would be something that you could use. And then as I said, you can always go to curtains or other things as well. But those are some of the designs on the market. Some of them just use a lever along the side that you kind of just move up and down. So they've already come up with a number of very creative solutions that I think people won't really even notice that they don't have those ugly cords hanging down. So
I'm sure these blinds are going to be, a little bit more expensive, but come on, we're talking about saving a life,
Yeah.
you know, so
Absolutely.
I don't want to hear anything about it's too expensive. Just do it.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
we always hear that with new technology or new changes, and it is true sometimes when they're developing the new designs and the new things. But I mean, things change rapidly. The price usually goes down, once they're in the marketplace, and you're building so many that it reduces your costs. And so we think that it will hopefully not for a long period of time have any sort of price impact on people.
I was going to say, I mean, I feel like it's one of those things where you can also, maybe if you're a renter, you can ask your landlord about it. Because I think maybe a lot of times, a lot of landlords own multiple properties, and maybe it's just not even something on their radar, right? They're keeping up with the water heater and the garbage disposal and the dishwasher, but they just haven't thought about the window covering. So I think even just starting the conversation, you might be surprised that your landlord is totally willing to make that upgrade.
Yeah. Well, they don't want to be liable either.
Right.
I mean,
so it's worth the conversation.
It certainly is worth the conversation. Or at the very least, I guess these kids are like in like chairs, or how are they getting to these cords? I guess there's multiple ways, right, Nancy?
There are multiple ways. So some of the cords hang down to the floor. Sometimes, unfortunately for parents who are unaware, they might even be over the crib or near enough to the crib that the baby can reach it. They might be, as you said, they climb on a chair on the back of the sofa. I mean, anyone who has kids, preschool kids, know they love to climb, right? So you may not think they can reach it, but often they can, use something else to get up and get to it. And, it's something that seems to have appeal to children because, to play with those cords.
Let's transition to furniture. Chest of drawers. I used to call them chest drawers. Chest of drawers or dressers. Have we made improvements when it comes to furniture and protecting kids?
We are making improvement there. That's another just such a long time hazard. So for, just this week, a little boy named Charlie Horn, it was 15 years since he died in a furniture tip over incident when he was 2.5. His father, Brett, and his family have really worked hard on this issue, along with many other families who've lost children. There's a group called Parents Against Tip Overs, made up of parents who've all lost their children to tip overs. Some of them have been working even longer than Brett and his family. And so we have been pushing both legislation called the Sturdy Act to get more stable furniture. That has passed the Senate. We actually worked together with industry on that bill that passed the Senate. We're trying to get it passed now in the House in the short time we have left in this session. We're hopeful there. But at the same time, really the advocacy, the work on Sturdy really pushed the Consumer Product Safety Commission to finally look at this issue seriously. And when I say seriously, they have like an 800-page report of all the research that they've done. They've come out with a new standard that will be effective probably May of next year that requires furniture to be stable enough that you don't have to anchor it to the wall to keep a 2 or 3-year-old from tipping it over. I mean, that's the big issue with furniture tip overs. I think most parents, you see a big piece of furniture, you have your tiny child, and you just can't imagine that anything they could do would tip over that big thing. But just because of the, the physics, really, the weight of even a small child on an open drawer changes the center of gravity, and that big piece of furniture can tip over.
I actually have experience with this. I was in a rental property one time, and I pulled open the drawer, and it ended up being one of those recalled IKEA dressers. The entire thing fell on me.
Wow.
And, I'm catching it. I was big enough to catch it because I'm a grown up, right? But there was nothing even in it. We were just moving into the rental for
Imagine being a toddler. That's how it happens.
It's horrifying. And I mean, I'm standing there holding it up and calling my husband over. He was my boyfriend at the time. I was like, help, what is happening here?
That is crazy.
And so, it just happens literally in a second. And, we started researching and realized those had been recalled, and made sure to tell the owner what had happened because we didn't want the next family moving in next week to have a little one.
Tell me your husband rushed over to help you out.
He did. He was my knight in shining armor per usual.
I don't want to have a Dateline episode.
No.
Dressers falling over. I bought a dresser about a month ago, and it was fully assembled. I didn't have to do anything. It's about 5 drawers, maybe 4.5 feet tall, but I find it interesting that it did come with brackets and screws in the drawer. Is that common nowadays?
It's required even by the voluntary standard that it comes with the brackets to attach it to the wall. The problem with that is, and why we wanted more than that, we wanted more stable furniture, is that's really relying on the parent or the family, whoever buys it, to make your product safe. Like, you should make it safe enough to be delivered. If parents want to child-proof it by attaching it to the wall, just like maybe they put locks on some cupboards or they put pads around their coffee table, that's fine and a good extra step, but it shouldn't be required to make it not tip over. But, I think that it's just been such a long stand, you're near miss, so many near misses. And the thing about the near misses is they're all really no different from the ones that are fatal, other than you were an adult. One of the things we see with children under furniture is because they're under it, their chest is often, has the weight of the dresser on it. They can't even call for help. Their body muffles the sound. So we know families, they were just in the next room. They heard nothing, even though the furniture tipped over, because the child was underneath it. So it is just, again, and I know all of these things with children are so tragic, but, and had they known, some of them, it was after the dresser was recalled. They never heard about the recall. Other ones, their children's death led to the recall. And now this group of Parents Against Tip Overs, has really led to this really two paths to safety. The rule that CPSC has already put into place, and that can be strengthened with the Sturdy Act that's still in Congress.
Some of these improvements sound like no-brainers. I mean, like, why didn't we have these, years ago? You did a story recently that I think got a lot of traction. It was very interesting. Reeses Law with, the batteries, the little small, what do you call those batteries, little round ones?
The button batteries. Nancy actually helped me a lot with that story and connected me
button batteries
with Reese's mother.
And when I say no-brainer, it makes sense to make those button batteries taste horrible. So if a child has one in their mouth, they're going to spit it out. I think that's a great idea. Why don't companies do that?
Yeah, I think that it's at a cost. I know the bittering agent maybe is something they just didn't think about. I mean, and so, Reese's Law is going to require that they be firmly kept within the compartment of the product that they're in, as well as when they're sold, they're in child-resistant packaging. And, if you talk to Trista, Reese's mom, she's just, she really, this was her mission to get this done, and she did. And we're so proud of her and the work that she did. And she's going to continue working now on children's safety issues because of the fact this just opened her eyes, as it, does for all of us, to how many things out there we don't really even think about. And that there is action you can take. There's things you can do. It doesn't need to be a laundry list for parents. We have enough of things we need to do to keep our own children safe. The products coming into our home should be safe when they come in.
Well, and that's where it does kind of get overwhelming. I mean, I have a 4-year-old and a 16-month-old, and they are into absolutely everything. And even as a consumer reporter, I feel like I am more aware of things than maybe the average parent, just because I am hit with all this information all the time, right? But even then, I'll talk to another parent and they'll say, oh, this is the thing that I'm most concerned with for safety in my house. And it was something that wasn't even on my radar. But then I'll share, oh, this one is the thing that really matters to me and I noticed it, and it's always a constant stream of communication. And you do feel like sometimes you have to, it's a second job to think through all these things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're a mom. I mean, you have to stay on top of it, or whether you're a dad, it doesn't matter. I mean, you got to stay on top of these things and share ideas. Hey, real briefly, let's transition, Nancy, to toys. We have Christmas and gift-giving holidays coming up. I know there's one rule of thumb that parents should probably keep in mind. Remind us what that is. It has something to do with the paper towel holder, or maybe like the toilet paper holder, right? I mean, if
the roll,
the roll, like if it fits inside of that, not a good idea.
It's not a good idea for children under 3. They put everything in their mouth. That's how they learn. So we don't want to discourage that behavior. We just want to make sure the things around them are safe. So there is a technical gauge that you can get and use, but we recommend the toilet paper tube. If it fits inside there, don't give it to a child under 3. And talk with your older children too, and help them develop ways to keep some of their smaller toys up out of the way. For instance, make sure every building set has a good storage box, that it's easy to put it all back in and up on a higher shelf. And then also just look, there can be toys that are attractive. You mentioned you have a 4-year-old toddler, but there's plenty of toys for 4-year-olds that don't have those small parts. They'll be perfectly happy with, and it will also keep the younger child safe, because we do have shared toy boxes. Once it comes into the house, it's hard to keep them all
we sure do.
Yeah.
And we're just starting to get into Legos in my house.
That
is a toy that Cormac knows he is only allowed to play with. He's only allowed to build with Legos if Campbell's taking a nap.
Yeah.
It's only a nap time toy.
It's funny that you brought that up, because I was thinking about Legos earlier when we were talking about the paper towel roll, because those Legos are fun to use and build, but so tiny.
They are tiny. Luckily, they're square. Their sharp edges kind of keep them from being the same kind of hazard. The biggest hazards, actually the number one toy that children choke on are deflated balloons, either broken or without the air, because they swallow those, it gets caught in their windpipe, and even for the EMTs, it's hard to remove it. So balloons should not be around, or deflated balloons should not be around children under 8 even. And then the other thing are small round balls, just because they fit so perfectly, and again are hard to remove even when you realize the child has them. So those are things I would just keep away from very young children. But the small parts tube, I have to say that the toy standard, which is also now a mandatory standard, is one of the strongest standards in all the ones that I work on. They really, whenever a new hazard comes up, they try and address it. Doesn't mean something else won't come up, but make sure your toys meet the current standards. Be careful who you're buying from. Make sure you're not getting counterfeit toys, especially if you're looking for something that's very popular this year. But if it does meet the current standard in the U.S., it should be safe for the age of child that it's being sold for.
Well, I think we've kind of improved a lot over the years and decades. I'll give you an example. Swimming pool fences. I mean, back 30 years ago, there were hotels that didn't even have fences around their pools. Car seats, they've improved those to help kids survive an accident, or at least make their injuries less severe. So I think we're making improvement, leaps and bounds, and it can only get better. So great conversation, Nancy. Really appreciate you being on the On Your Side podcast with us and telling us some of the new rules and regulations coming into place. If people want to know more about KID or you, just give us some websites or some social media platforms.
Sure. So we're Kids in Danger, all one word, on all our social media platforms. And that's our website too, kidsindanger.org. We have all this information. We have great handouts. We'll even send you. We have a great kid product safety guide, children's product safety guide that covers all these issues and more. You can distribute to your groups of parents. Definitely reach out to us if you want more information.
Great. Good info and a great conversation. Hopefully, this is going to save lives out there. Nancy, thank you so much. Enjoy the weather up there in Chicago. The balmy 75 while we suffer down here in 65 degrees. But it was great talking to you, and we'll talk again soon, okay?
All right. It sounds great. Great to talk to you guys.
The On Your Side podcast is produced by Brad Denny. Our audio engineer and editor is Todd Martin. Segment producer is Colin Stanton. And I'm Gary Harper.
And I'm Susan Campbell. If you have a problem you can't resolve, maybe we can. Send us a message through azfamily.com or our AZ Family mobile app. Look for the On Your Side section and leave us a message. Thanks so much for listening to the On Your Side podcast. And if you like it, leave us a review. We'll see you next week.
On Your Side is on Good Morning Arizona every weekday morning at 6:45 and 7 o'clock, and every weekday evening on Good Evening Arizona at 4 and 5 o'clock. You can also catch it on Arizona's Family News at 9 on 3TV every weeknight.